Lena Marshall's dream vacation turned into a nightmare the moment she boarded the Carnival Horizon 7 days of paradise that ended with her lifeless body floating miles from shore and a killer who vanished before anyone even realized she was gone. 17-year-old Lena Marshall had been counting down the days to her family's first big vacation in years. The Carnival Horizon shimmered under the Miami sun like a floating city, promising adventure, luxury, and freedom. To Lena, it felt like the perfect way to celebrate finishing high school a week at sea with nothing but blue horizons and laughter ahead. As the ship pulled away from the port, she stood at the railings, watching the coastline fade, unaware that this would be the last time she would ever see it. From the first day, Lena explored the cruise ship with wide-eyed curiosity. The endless buffets, glowing pools, bustling casinos, and cheerful music made it feel like a dream she never wanted to end. She took photos at every corner, selfies with the sunset, snapshots of her family laughing at dinner, videos of herself twirling on the deck. Every picture she posted online looked like pure happiness. Yet behind that joy, a small sense of unease began to grow. She couldn't explain why she kept catching glimpses of the same tall man in different places: the dining area, the arcade, even the narrow hallway outside her cabin. He never spoke to her, never did anything suspicious, but something about his silent presence felt unsettling. One evening, after returning from a show, Lena noticed her keycard wasn't where she left it. Her mother assumed she misplaced it, but Lena was sure she hadn't. She laughed it off, trying not to make a big deal out of it, though the thought stayed with her through the night. When she woke up, she found her suitcase slightly unzipped, clothes rumpled as if someone had gone through them. She tried to convince herself it was her imagination, maybe turbulence, or her brother looking for something. As the ship sailed deeper into the Caribbean, Lena began feeling as though eyes followed her everywhere. Even in crowded places, she sensed someone watching. That same man always seemed to appear a few feet away, pretending to blend in. Still, she said nothing to her parents. She didn't want to ruin the vacation or sound paranoid. But as night fell, the waves seemed darker, and the laughter around her began to feel distant. What had started as the trip of a lifetime was slowly turning into something else, something Lena couldn't name, but would soon come face to face with. The fourth night of the cruise began like any other, filled with excitement and noise. The ship hosted its famous Caribbean Glow Party, a dazzling event that brought nearly every passenger to the main deck. The air pulsed with music, neon lights reflected off the waves, and laughter carried across the ocean. Lena wore a white dress that shimmered under the glow sticks and danced with the friends she had made earlier in the trip. For a few hours, her fears melted away. The man she had been noticing wasn't anywhere in sight, and she allowed herself to relax. Surveillance cameras later showed her smiling, holding a bright pink mocktail, moving easily among the crowd. It was 11:47 p.m., the last confirmed image of her alive. As the night grew late, the crowd thinned. The music faded, leaving only the hum of engines and the soft crash of waves against the hull. Lena's friends went to their cabins, assuming she had too, but Lena never returned. When her parents woke around 2 in the morning, her bed was empty, the sheets untouched. Her phone and shoes were still by the nightstand. Thinking she might have gone for a walk, they waited. By dawn, worry turned to panic. The ship's staff began searching deck by deck, announcing her name over the intercom, their calm voices disguising the urgency behind the scenes. Security checked the cameras, but there was something strange. One of the feeds from Deck 9, the area near the railing overlooking the ocean, was missing 3 minutes of footage. Those missing minutes were exactly when Lena was last seen heading in that direction. The technical team said it was a glitch, but the timing felt too specific. Crew members began scouring the area, finding only a single pink hair tie tangled near the railing, fluttering in the morning wind. As the hours passed with no sign of Lena, rumors began spreading among passengers. Someone claimed they had heard a scream near the top deck just after midnight. Another said they saw a figure leaning over the railing alone. The captain slowed the ship and alerted the Coast Guard, marking the coordinates where Lena was last seen. Families gathered by the decks, staring into the endless blue, hoping for a miracle that would never come. 2 days after the search began, a small fishing boat off the coast of the Bahamas spotted something floating on the surface of the water. At first, the fishermen thought it was debris washed off the ship, but as they drew closer, they realized it was the body of a young woman, her hair tangled with strands of seaweed, her white dress torn and faded by salt. The Coast Guard confirmed what everyone feared: it was Lena Marshall. The news spread rapidly across the ship, and within hours, every passenger knew. The cheerful atmosphere that had once filled the Carnival Horizon vanished. The decks fell silent, and families who had been strangers comforted each other in shock. The official report stated that Lena's cause of death was undetermined, but early details made investigators suspicious. There were no signs of drowning in her lungs, meaning she was already unconscious or dead before she entered the water. Small bruises covered her arms, and there was a puncture mark on her neck that didn't match any insect bite. Toxicology results later revealed traces of a strong sedative, one often used to incapacitate victims quickly. Someone had attacked her and then thrown her overboard to erase the evidence. Authorities began questioning everyone who had interacted with Lena during the cruise. Crew members, entertainers, bartenders, and even her new friends were interviewed. One cabin steward mentioned finding a high-heeled shoe near a service corridor that passengers rarely used. When investigators compared it to the items found in Lena's luggage, it was confirmed as hers. That same corridor led to a maintenance hatch that opened directly onto the outer deck. It was an area with limited camera coverage and minimal lighting, an ideal spot for someone trying to avoid detection. As forensic teams collected what little evidence they could, the cruise line tried to control the story. Official statements spoke of a tragic accident, though investigators privately disagreed. The family demanded answers, their grief turning to anger as inconsistencies appeared in the ship's logs and security data. Someone had tampered with the system, and the missing footage from Deck 9 now seemed more deliberate than accidental. The Carnival Horizon docked in Miami under a heavy cloud of suspicion, and the Marshall family returned home without their daughter, carrying only questions that no one seemed ready to answer. The investigation into Lena Marshall's death expanded beyond the cruise line as law enforcement agencies from multiple countries became involved. The first major breakthrough came when passenger records revealed something alarming. One man's identification didn't match the photo in the database. He had boarded using a stolen passport belonging to a man who had died years earlier. That same passenger was the individual Lena had noticed several times during the trip, the one who always seemed to appear wherever she went. Security footage, limited as it was, showed him moving between restricted areas of the ship, including maintenance corridors and staff-only decks. These were places that ordinary guests couldn't access without permission or an electronic override. Investigators searched his cabin after the ship docked, finding disturbing evidence. Hidden inside a false compartment under the bed was a phone containing dozens of photos of young women taken during the cruise. Many were candid shots from odd angles taken without consent. Lena appeared in several of them, often alone, unaware she was being watched. Authorities also discovered a stolen crew ID badge and a small tool set used to manipulate digital locks and access panels. The man had clearly planned his movements carefully. The mystery deepened when the cruise line provided work records showing the suspect had once been employed by a maritime security company that maintained surveillance systems for several major cruise ships, including the Carnival Horizon. That connection explained how the 3-minute gap in the Deck 9 footage might have been created. He had the technical knowledge to disable cameras without leaving a visible trace. But despite the evidence, the suspect had already vanished. He had left the ship during an unscheduled maintenance stop in the Bahamas 2 days before Lena's body was found. Immigration records confirmed his passport was scanned at the port, but there was no further trace after that. Investigators suspected he had used a secondary identity to disappear completely. Interpol issued a notice, but with the crime spanning international waters, jurisdiction became a nightmare. Meanwhile, passengers who remembered seeing him were haunted by the thought that they had been sharing meals, hallways, and decks with a predator hiding in plain sight. The ocean had kept its silence, but the truth was beginning to surface. Months passed, and the case of Lena Marshall's death seemed to fade into silence. The cruise line avoided interviews, citing the ongoing investigation, and the Marshall family faced endless delays and unanswered calls. Online communities began discussing the case, piecing together timelines and passenger accounts. A small group of amateur investigators uncovered more about the man with the false passport. His background led to fragments of employment records, all under different aliases, connected to various ships across the Caribbean. Each time, he vanished just before a reported incident involving a missing woman. It was a pattern that stretched back nearly 5 years, always involving luxury liners, always ending in mystery. Then, almost half a year after Lena's death, a new piece of evidence surfaced. An anonymous email arrived at the FBI's cybercrime unit in Florida, containing an attachment labeled Deck 9 footage, MP4. The file, though grainy, showed Lena standing near the railing that night, looking frightened. A figure in a crew uniform approached her, appearing calm, almost reassuring. The face was blurred, but investigators noticed a distinctive mark on the man's wrist, a tattoo shaped like an anchor. That same mark had been noted in one of the photos found on the suspect's hidden phone. The email had no sender information, but it reignited the investigation that had nearly gone cold. When authorities reviewed employee records again, they discovered something shocking. The suspect hadn't only been posing as a passenger, he had also been listed as a temporary maintenance worker under a second identity. His background check had been falsified, and he had used insider knowledge to bypass security clearance. It became clear that the man had planned everything before the ship even departed. He had studied the layout, found the blind spots, and identified vulnerable passengers. Lena had simply been the one who noticed him too many times. The cruise company quietly settled with the Marshall family, avoiding the risk of a public trial. They promised to improve security systems, install more cameras, and strengthen identity checks. Yet, despite all these measures, the suspect was never found. Years later, another cruise reported a similar disappearance, almost identical in detail. The ocean kept its secrets, but whispers among investigators suggested that the predator who hunted on the open sea was still out there, waiting for his next voyage to begin.